Welcome, our fireside chat with no fire.
I'm feeling the warmth,
fire?
though. I'm feeling the warmth.
Yeah, because it's going to be 70 something today. For the
Yeah,
first
are we going to
time.
beat
It's a little
Texas?
cool though because it's all blue behind you today.
Yeah, it is. I went with the blue, mainly because I just didn't decide to change it.
We can pull up the YouTube and the link and just have a fire.
I could just
right
put
there.
the green screen up, and then we can
Exactly,
flip it back.
exactly.
Then we can look like all those people on Zoom with like the tropical background and just their head, and and it looks awful. Yeah,
Right.
There's like awkward cutouts.
Were you
Yeah.
wearing
Yes,
palm trees?
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
cut out. Or if they go back or forward,
Right.
they
Like
come out of
moves.
they're gone.
Yeah.
Like,
See
where'd
a
you go?
cat
You went
jump
into
up,
the.
and you're like, what the hell? I hate when. Why didn't you just do your normal background? Like, why not? Why make it this facade? Unless your house is that bad, you might want to, get a different spot.
Yeah, I guess they don't want to see what's behind you. That's why I built like a library and behind me and my computer.
Not that you read, just that you built the library.
It looked really good because I saw everybody on TV with like libraries behind them, and I was like, oh, I'm doing that.
I had my desk facing the bookcase that's over to my left right now at one point in time, and I looked like I was in a dungeon up next to the bookcase, so I had to move. And now
Now you have art.
I have art, but it's very reflective.
I mean, you can't really tell. It just.
It looks like sand kind of moving. I don't know what it is, but
What does this
What does
picture
this mean?
It's
to
just
you?
abstract.
it is abstract. So today I'm seeing sand because maybe I'm thinking about the beach, but
Could be.
And
sand
could
and
be.
That's
water.
fair. That's
It
fair.
goes with the blue theme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Look at that.
Look
Tropical.
At us. Tropical.
I made it.
Are we actually
I
going to
got palm
beat
trees
Texas
on.
today in degrees? Are we
I
going to
don't
be what's your high, Lindsay? Do you know?
Ooh, it is 61 and the wind is blowing
Okay.
today flat.
Uh,
We don't have the wind yet. Not till tonight.
Yeah, the high is 70.
Okay.
All right.
We have a chance.
Our high is 73 potentially.
Okay.
Sucker. Now let's not talk about the rest of the week. Let's just leave
I was
that
going to say
today.
Sunday, the high is 79.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Monday, 84.
All right.
Guess who's hitting the golf course this weekend?
So
There we
That
go.
would not be us.
rest of our week
Not be
is
us. We got
we won't
rain.
talk about it.
We got rain and rain
In 40s.
and more rain.
I think there's some snow chance something Wednesday morning.
Oh,
It's just
not
like
that
3
word.
straight days.
Yeah.
Be fine. Can of corn be all right. All right. So today's fireside, little chizat. We'll talk about some current events, of course. And then I have a couple topics, and I would assume you guys do as well. But a couple of topics will be overall trust in a relationship between your planner and yourself. Going it alone as a individual. I almost said investor. Wrong topic. But still going it alone, and then kind of a reflection of our daily struggles as planners, both like physically and mentally, of what we go through, dealing and being in charge of your money. I think it's important for individuals to understand that, yes, you're stressed about your situation, but I'm not going to say we stress more, but it's got to be close. It's got to be really up there, mainly because of everything that we can see and that we deal with. So that's kind of what today's going to be about. And then we'll talk about some current events, gas prices, the hot take, and then
Ground beef. I want to talk
Conversation.
about ground beef.
you want to talk about
prices.
ground beef, and we'll go through there with that. So let's kick it off with as we always should with the trust factor. When you think of trust, let's just start with the basics of that. Trust. What does that mean to you guys?
Getting deep early.
Yeah. go all
Always. For me, it's just like unconditional belief in that person. So I trust you fully. If I trust somebody, it's just unconditional belief that whatever I ask or whatever you say you're going to do, I have no doubts in my mind that you're just going to take care of it for me.
Solid. That's a solid one to start with. Well done, sir.
That's a good answer. I will add to that, and I think for me, it's like this innate feeling, whether I know the person a long time or it's been a short time relationship, we've been able to have a conversation where maybe there's similar values, similar beliefs, or their expertise has really been demonstrated in a way that I feel comfortable sharing myself, my goals, values, beliefs. In their relationship, we can take that forward, and I can trust them to do what they say they're going to do. I think the action part, either I've seen something or felt something where action is steps are taken after that. And you think about a good friend like you've had forever, and you've been through all the ups and downs together, and you trust them with everything. And then you think about business relationships. Someone has been with you through something, through the ups and downs, and that trust has been built over that as well.
I would agree with all those things. And then add to that, that I think there's a huge part of being able just to relate to somebody makes you more likely to trust them, right? But then being your authentic self and having them be their authentic self with you also. Like, you can always tell when somebody's kind of withholding or not sharing or something like that. And I just think being your authentic self is really what drives trust in most relationships, in my personal experience.
Absolutely. And that being real or authentic, I think is the most important piece for what we do when we have clients, right? We need them to be real, authentic, and essentially give us all the information as possible. And I was on, who was I speaking to? I don't remember who I was speaking to last week, but they were asking, like, how do people, it was Kylie. Like, how do people trust you with all of that information that we gather? Because, we're a little different than others. I found out that we're drastically different than others, by the way. When we're asking for tax returns and all the statements and cash flow and all of that, they're like, she asked me, how do they trust you or are okay with doing so? And my answer was, we're amazing, duh. But no, truthfully, is somewhere in our relationship, they understand that in order for us to really help them, they kind of have to go all in. And if you don't go all in, then and you withhold things, it only ends up getting things in trouble and hurting the plan or causing, who knows, issues down the road. So I want to ask you all that, kind of what Kylie said. What do you do that's different than others to garner all of that information? Is it as simple as just asking? Or is there something else that you actually think you do in order to build that trust within a short period of time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and it's a big piece of our motto here at Black Mammoth, is it's just being transparent with that person, and full on transparency, and just telling them, hey, we need this information so we can do what's best for you. We don't want to miss anything or leave any stone unturned. We want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to put you in a better place than before you met us.
And I think it starts with that first meeting where we're not only talking about finances, we're getting to know them and their life and their family and kids or where they've been, what they're doing. And then we're sharing about ourselves as well. I think it's a two-way street. I think we can't be closed and then expect them to be open. And being able to do that is a little bit vulnerable for both of us, and but allows them to share their story and where they want to go and feel comfortable with us. And then being transparent and asking, like, this is why we need these documents and this is why it's important, and not just saying, yeah, we just need them. So doing some clarifying and explanation of how important the documents are for their plan.
Yeah, I would say that I try really hard not to be the traditional financial planner when I'm sitting down with clients. So that first meeting is super important to me for a couple of reasons. But I'll say the first one is most people think that I have RBF. You guys can Google that to figure out what that is.
I just had to think, and now I'm getting it.
But most people think that that's what I look like. And I know this about myself. Like, that's a lot of self-awareness working in corporate America and kind of making the switch over, right? But what's really important to me is making sure that I help people relax in front of me. And a lot of that is bringing laughter and smiles and sharing those crazy stories with people so that they know I'm real and I'm just another human being, right? And so that's a big part of it. But then also making them know, like letting them know that it's okay to ask any question and giving them a taste of this is some of the education stuff that I do along the way. So it makes them feel like I'm learning throughout this process. So I'm adding value every step of the way. And I think that that's a critical piece of what helps me set myself apart from other advisors.
Yeah, and something Kylie brought up when we were chatting about this is she's like, well, why? Why do you get all of that information? Like, what's the point? Because, you know, what everyone's taught, traditional, I guess most firms, I didn't know this, I thought we started getting away from this, but of retirement, you're setting your goals, right? So they figure out you need X amount of dollars at X age, and then they back it all the way down. And then they just do whatever that number is, right? And for example, what I'm talking about, people, is if you need a 2.5 million at 65 and we back it all the way down to today, you need to invest $500 a month. Well, that's where they stop. They just know that number gets to this number. I don't know if you guys are aware, but life happens, right? And there's a lot of time between that time period of shit happens, right? War, inflation, babies, everything in between. So that number and that plan can't just be so stuck in the mud like that. So I explained to her why we do it the exact opposite. We want to clear up all their cash flow so we know what's coming in, where it's going out. Then we can attribute a number to creating some type of plan and buckets, not really even bringing up the fact that you need 2.5 million at age 65. One, because that number is arbitrary. It's just, in our industry, just a bunch of numbers typed into a little calculator and it pops up a number. You don't know taxes, you don't know life, you don't even know if you'll be alive. Like, there's so many factors that go into that if you do it the opposite way, you think about what's coming in, what's going out. Not only can you find more money to probably invest or do things with, you're also actually focused on the now and building an overall plan that can change over time, as opposed to making people feel like, hey, if I don't do $500 a month, I'm never going to be able to retire, right? Like, if they miss a month, that anxiety, for, in my experience, for clients, is above and beyond actually being able to retire. It's saying, oh, I'm behind the 8 ball. I'm 35, I'm 30, I'm 40, whatever the number is. I feel like I need to be, in the millions to retire. And one, that's not necessarily true. And two, you do have time as long as you start and do it when it fits your actual cash flow, not just some random number that we spit out. So,
well, and I think to your point, there's two story. Like, if I get anybody in front of me that's, they say, oh, I have X amount of dollars that I'm going to put towards my plan. Okay. I know that they're probably giving me the high number, right? Or somewhere close to the high number. It would not be in my best interest or theirs, primarily theirs, to say, let's put all that money into a plan for you, because you still need to live and enjoy your lifestyle, right? And I think that that's where a lot of planners kind of get a bad rap too, right? You'll sit down with them and you say, I have $5,000 a month to put towards a plan, and they're gonna write you up a plan for $5,001 a month.
Right.
Find that extra dollar.
Every cent.
Every cent.
Yeah, I think too, in some of those initial conversations that we have, rather than asking, how much do you think you need in retirement? It's a different phrasing. It's, what do you want your life to look like in retirement? And for people, that's different. They might think 2.5 million, like you mentioned, that's what they need, and because they want to live X lifestyle. That's not everybody. I might want to just go to Wyoming or Montana, live on a ranch away from anybody and not have neighbors, and wake up every morning, look out into the nature, and be good with it. And I might not need hundreds of thousands of dollars of income every single year to do that. So I think it's just really honing in on who they are, having that initial conversation, really getting to know them. And that's where people start to open up and show their vulnerability.
Well, and asking questions about those dreams too. So I have a client that I helped figure out how to do she called it her dope gap year. Where, like, she got her kids up and out of the house. She's not old enough to retire, isn't interested in retiring, wants to keep working, but like COVID made her rethink how she works, right? And so we literally planned for her to be gone for an entire calendar year, like doing Airbnbs and stuff, so that she can enjoy life, travel, have fun still. And I think just being open to that and open and exploring those options with clients really kind of helps you set yourself apart too.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Just
Adult gap year. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I'm down.
That is awesome. I've never heard of somebody
Count me
doing
in.
that or like had a conversation with somebody who wanted to do that. Now that I've heard that, okay.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do that after the baby comes, Ryan.
Yeah, I think so.
You're gonna need
I
gap
think
year.
so.
You got about 18,
Without the
19
baby?
years to go.
Hey, that's
You
all
got some
right.
time to figure
That's
that
all
one out.
right.
God, that'd be
Yeah,
so
but I
much
think
fun.
that just shows like Lindsay as an advisor is like listening, right? The basic skill, like what does the client want and how can we help you get there? And it's not like just saying this is what you need and this is what we're going to do for you. But what does the client want? What does the client need? And they're saying this, and as an advisor, she's listening, we're listening, which I think a lot of people just don't do that basic skill of listening.
And that's probably, I don't know, the majority of our monthly fee, right? Is the conversation in like listening and understanding and then developing some crazy way to make that happen, right? Everyone, well, Kylie was asking like, she was going to, this will air by the time she's already done it tomorrow, Tuesday, which you guys won't know what day
Doesn't
it is. She is going to go speak in front of resident pharmacists, right? And so I was helping her with, what to say and don't go generic and don't do all the traditional stuff. And she's like, well, it doesn't fit our model in terms of our monthly fee at where she's currently at. And I said, well, how doesn't it? That's specifically who it should be. They have huge student loans. They need help to create that plan, but their income potential in the near future is going to be fairly high. Why wouldn't that fit? Well, it's because they're not doctors that make, 4, 5, 600,000. So they won't be able to, I think their minimum's around 500 a month. And I said, well, I think that is ignorant of wherever you're working right now, because that's exactly who should be doing it. And they will pay it. And her question was, well, what are they paying for if they're not going to be able to do investments? I'm like, yeah, probably not. Well, what about all the other stuff, right? What about all that cash flow? What about being able to plan for those things? That's what planning is. It is not the investment piece. I don't know how many times we will reiterate the fact that we really don't care about the AUM piece of it. It is important, but it is just a little piece of the pie. The biggest piece is the planning, the conversations, the goals, and actually achieving them through monthly, daily, however many times you want to Slack us. We'll answer. Might take us 24 hours, depending what the question is. But that was just the difference between our firm and that firm that she's at is they won't take on that client because they believe they can't do any value because they believe their only value is investment management. Whereas in planning, we would love that client because that's the one that over time is going to trust us more. We're going to be able to do more for because they are not just worried about, hey, you didn't make me 10% this year while the S&P did 30 or whatever. That was interesting.
Yeah, I think that is interesting because I think you hit the nail on the head. It's helping those people get to a point where we've managed that cash flow well enough to where they can invest. Investing and doing some of those things is more of a privilege if you can't live your day-to-day life and you're just sitting there pinching pennies. And I think that's what some people don't realize is, I have to invest. I have to do something for the future. If you are going to harm your now, there's probably not going to be a very good future because you're going to have to keep turning off that spigot and turning it back on when you're investing because you're pinching pennies. Be comfortable with your day-to-day cash flow before you start jumping into things.
And investing doesn't have to be into an investment. Invest in yourself, your business, all of that counts. And I think that's where we just don't. Our society right now is fighting that. You've got a younger generation that understands not only the mental health or, taking an adult year, which I love and in for, as compared to working 100 hours a week, investing it all into some stocks, letting it sit there for 30, 40 years, and then retiring. We are in that situation where it's all flipping. It's all turning, which means our industry needs to turn with it ahead of it so that way everyone's prepared for it. And apparently There's not as many out there as I anticipated, but kind of out there. All back to trust, right? We need to earn their trust, but I also just at some point need to trust us. And if you're not ready to take that leap, that's okay. It's okay. You can, try going it yourself, which leads me into the next topic of going it alone. Since we're all advisors, planners, doctorates, whatever, I'm not a doctor.
No.
I would love to be one, just so I could say I'm a doctor. Just once, one day.
That's a really bad reason to want that story.
You can get an honorary doctorate
I should get an honorary
from
doctorate.
a university.
Yeah.
Call, maybe Drake will call.
Well, my buddy is a surgeon in DC, and I don't know if you guys ever watch Scrubs, but I kind of have an appearance of one. So he said one of these days, just come in and we'll act just like the show Scrubs. And I promise you won't get in trouble because apparently it's very difficult to tell a doctor from someone else apart if you're just wearing scrubs. And I was like, I'm in.
Isn't it like
Then I'm going to get suckered
everyone
into
has
a
different
surgery.
color scrubs based on their...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like they go around.
But the surgical scrubs are
Just
all
don't go
light
into the
blue, and
surgical.
every's got the same
Make sure
same
you're not
surgical
pulled
scrubs.
into
I'm going to pull
surgery.
in surgery. They'll be like, doctor, what do we do? Well, see,
Do you have a financial plan? You'll ask that first.
What's your income coming in and your expenses going out? But seriously,
Just don't cut me open.
and we're not getting into the pros and cons of going it alone, but what are things that people need to think about when they're financially trying to do this thing themselves? Aside from the fact that they shouldn't and they should hire us. Outside of that, what are some things that everyone needs to think about or grasp on a day-to-day?
I think we do it every day as well, or at least when we're getting started, is setting some sort of timetable or schedule of when am I actually going to sit down and do this. Some people try to do it in spurts and random times. I think sometimes if you're going to do it by yourself, you really need to set aside time to really focus and sit down and say, okay, this is what I need to look at and this is what I need to do for the next hour, 2 hours, whatever it is that fits in your schedule.
What would be in that? What do they need to do in that time period?
In that time period, I think step one, and we always talk about it, is organization. Okay, let's organize those bills. Let's organize those, that cash flow. Let's organize transactions. I mean, we're doing all these things for clients as well. So if we're doing it as, experts in the field, I think you should probably be doing it on your own as well to put yourself in, again, like I'll keep going back to it, in a better position than when you sat down initially.
Now, team, do you think that is an hour a day, hour a week? Think about everything that we do. How many hours should people be devoting to really controlling their entire financial picture? Not just their budget, but legitimately everything that we do. How often should they be dedicating time to it?
I mean, there's the real and there's the actual,
Well, we got to give them the real.
the real.
Got to give them the real. That's what we do.
I mean, really, it'd be
So
every day,
let's
but
further define it a little bit
reality,
here.
right?
So does this include paying your bills every month? Is that included in that?
Investments?
Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone wants to do this whole thing by themselves, what things do they need to do? And how long does it take?
I'm going to say minimum 5 to 10 hours a month. And the reason I say that is, one, the get organized part sounds easier than what it actually is.
It's a nightmare. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Then once you're organized, then it's building a budget, tracking the budget, which means having some sort of schedule that you sit down and pay your bills and log everything. Right? I'm trying to think other things. There's so many things, right? How do you keep track of all your tax items that, it sounds simple to just drop them in a folder, but it's not just as simple as dropping it in a folder all the time.
Yeah.
I think the setup is probably the hardest part. Like you said, the organization. If you need to set up your own accounts, things like that, understanding researching what kind of accounts
That's it.
am I going to have?
that's
What's going
what
to be in
yeah.
my account?
That's what I was hoping we would get to, is the research.
That's my favorite
Research
part.
alone is
Right.
5 to 10 hours. Think
a lot.
about it. if you're going it alone, that means you're picking your investments. How many hours a week should you even be looking at your investments? You've got to do it at least daily to understand. But that's just looking at them. You have to understand them. So, I mean, the hours of researching and going into it, I mean, it just for example, when we're training a trader, it's at least 6 months of daily, mainly 8 hours a day, 6 to 8 hours a day of training in order to trade correctly, to understand what's going on, let alone the time to actually be successful at it, right? So the research on just the investment piece. Then the research on the structure of which you want to put things in. What type of account? Where, right? What bank? Am I going to do anything internationally? Do I have a business? What do I do for my kids? Understanding student loans. Okay, there's things that come out with student loans all the time. Hopefully one very soon. Okay, what does that look like? Read into that. Read into the legality of everything, right? So now you're probably going to hire an attorney, which people do when they go to loan. Okay, well, there's still a cost to that, and you probably still need to understand what that is and how it works. So for me, research alone is got to be an hour a day. You can take weekends off, but like an hour a day of research-based things, and you still probably, and that's just research, let alone actually physically doing the button pushing and moving of stuff.
And I think to go along with that research, something that we do with clients frequently that you'll have to do on your own that people don't necessarily think about is figuring out how risky they want to be, that risk score, and understanding these investments and how risky those investments actually are. And the algorithms and the calculations and everything that go behind actually figuring this out. So for us, clients come in, and when we're asking them to do these risk scores and different stuff, they're like, sometimes they get a little taken back because they're like, oh, these are questions that I didn't think that I didn't even know that I'm going to be asked. You know, you're guaranteed this amount of money, or you can risk this amount of money. What are you going to do? And then at the same time, I think within that, you know, we keep going back to hiring a planner, different stuff. Is your risk score going to be different if you're doing this by yourself versus trusting an expert?
Oh, yeah.
What's sense to
I'm
say?
totally going to jump in here and talk about my parents because I can pick on them. They'll never listen to the podcast. I'm sure. I can pick on them. Okay, so my parents are late 60s, early 70s, and they literally just did their risk tolerance score with me, right? A risk assessment. And they both came back with like a pretty high risk score. And I was like, there's no way I'm putting him in something that's
there's no way you're an 80.
Because when I call my stepdad and I'm like, yeah, your portfolio lost 20% today, he's going to lose it.
Right.
But the expectation is that he wants a better return than where he's going to get it somewhere else. And I think that people often will be more aggressive on their own because they want to see the bigger returns, but they are definitely not thinking about what the other side is and what the potential is for losing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a big thing when you go at it alone. You have that, it's stress. Like that's a different level of stress.
Mm-hmm.
It's the emotion part, right? The emotions. When you're dealing with your own things and your own money, you are 100% going to be more emotional, right? Hiring an expert is the reason that we are not going to be emotional like you. We understand understand it all, so we're going to make what I like to call business decisions, right? Not personal emotional ones, but business decisions. And going it alone, you can get there. Like, don't get me wrong, but people do it. There's a lot of successful people out there, but that is going to be the hardest piece. And that, I don't think there's amount of hours we can dedicate towards it. It's just going to be time and experience of losing money, making poor decisions, and getting your way through it before you can probably detach that emotional from a business decision.
Yeah, I think Lindsay talking about getting higher returns as yourself, and you know we talk about it in the trading world. Different stuff is it's chasing. Sometimes you see this loss, and you're like instantly, I have to make this up. And John hit on it the other week as well. You know, I have to make this up. I lost X amount of dollars. I have to go and I have to figure out a way to get this back. That means, okay, I have to change that might mean I have to change my allocation here and be more risky. No, not necessarily. It's just understanding that things happen. You're going to take lumps, and stay true to your course. If this is truly the course that's best for you, stay true to it. And that's something that we'll be able to do, is give you that reassurance. Hey, this is going to get you to your goals. It's going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be ups and downs, but don't sit here and think that as soon as there's a down, my plan is derailed, because that's not what happens.
Shit takes a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's life, right?
It's a long game.
It's a life, legitimately a life game. It is not. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I read an article this weekend about being diamond hard with your emotions, because the best diamonds come out under pressure, but it takes a lifetime of pressure to get there, right?
Yep.
Like, it's that same kind of thing. Like, for some of these investments, you need to be diamond hard about them and take all the emotion out of it.
Yeah, and piggybacking even the investment piece and switching it to, where do I work? Where do I live? How do I live? What do I eat? Like, all of those decisions should ultimately be a diamond decision, or, a business decision. You shouldn't have your emotions into it if you have a plan. Now, most people don't just have that hard, fast of a plan. But those are the things that you have to look at and appreciate the art of this. Like, there is, and luckily Lindsay has art behind her, but there is art in financial planning. Like, what we do is trying to paint this entire picture as we go on this journey and make the changes and adjustments. And the plan is, when you're dead, that the art is there, and we can just pass it on to the next generation, and they can continue to build it. So I think it's a big piece.
Which I think that brings up another point. If you're doing it yourself, or when you do it yourself, are you thinking about how to pass that on to, like, leave your legacy? Or are you missing anything? And it's always good to double check or connect with somebody about that to make sure it's passing the right way.
Yeah.
Which is a big piece that we do.
I always think that the stats that are out there around people not preparing for their legacy, I just always think that it's always shocking to me to see those numbers, because most people don't have proper will, trust, any of that stuff put in place. And so when you go out alone, that's one of the last things you do, because you think, oh, that's another expense that I have to pay out of pocket to obtain those things.
Yeah. All good?
Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Anytime wifey calls at this point, it's
Yep.
a better answer. You just never know.
It was actually a good call. Our appointment got switched to today instead of tomorrow, and it just works out. It works out better. So
Nice. So going into your loan, as you probably everyone can hear, there's a lot that goes into it, and we probably didn't even get to most of it. No, we didn't. There's no way we did, because I kind of set it up that way. Anyways, so going it alone obviously can be very overwhelming. There's a lot of moving pieces, and there's moving pieces every day. So the next topic kind of filters into that, and it goes into our daily struggles as planners. And yes, you're like, well, what do you mean struggles? I mean, everything we just said, we do for ourselves. We do it for all of our clients. We do it as a team. And then we also have to connect all the dots and make sure that everything's continuing to go. So struggles, daily struggles as a planner. Who wants to get deep with it on that?
I mean, I've been starting, so I'll continue to go
Yeah,
there.
you just go.
So I think there's this notion that if you're a financial planner, that you are just perfect with money, and your finances are perfect. Everything about your life is perfect. But just like you talked about, life does not happen in a vacuum. So for me, I'm living an experience right now that's going to change my world significantly. About to have a baby. So that's for Carly and I, it was a little bit kind of unexpected, and we weren't necessarily planning everything out. So now my plans have to change. Now that's monthly expenses going forward. That's cash flow going forward. That's, sticking true to my plan before, but making adjustments so that I can still have that plan going forward. it's just a thing where I have to realize that life happens. It's okay. Let's make a change. And I think one of the biggest, probably my hardest critic sometimes can be Carly. She thinks that we have to have this perfect financial picture. And I just keep explaining to her that, again, life happens. We're in a good spot, but we're going to have to keep adapting and keep making changes as we grow a family.
I'll talk about perfection too, because that's part of my, either a good part of my personality or not. We'll see. But I think like as a planner, you know, you want everything to be perfect for the client. You want it to be easy. You want it to be smooth, the perfect plan. There is no such thing. And I strive for that for myself, for my family, for my clients. And I think that can get hard on me emotionally because I feel like maybe I'm not doing the best I can for everyone. So yeah, perfection can be really good or really bad.
Depends on the situation of the
Depends
day.
on the situation. On the golf course, it
Yep.
can be actually really good.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we are always working with the best interest for our clients. And so that's tough for me sometimes.
Yeah, I would say also a recovering perfectionist right here.
Oh,
But
good. We can
life
hang
has
out.
happened to me a whole lot. And I think that as life happens to you as a planner, you tend to be more graceful. You tend to giving grace, right? You tend to be more, I don't know. I think it's more empathetic with clients when something comes up and all of a sudden they're going along this path and I need to shift and do a complete 180 and go away from the plan and redo it and that kind of thing. And, you know, in my lifetime, I've been divorced twice. Byron and I, this is my third marriage, right? And to say that
and final.
it is my last
Okay.
marriage, let's put it that way. Yeah,
I
he
need to
knows
get
that
out
too,
in the
like-
universe. So
yeah, out in the universe. But no, like what I would say about that is I never expected those things to happen in my life. Not ever, right? I never expected my dad to have a massive stroke and for me to have to completely uproot my life to help take care of him, right? But those things happen. And as those life experiences happen to a planner, I think it makes you better because you get to relate to people on a completely different level. But at the same time, like the perfectionist, the recovering perfectionist in me is always like, how do I do better for myself and others still? And we walk around with a certain amount of stress, right? Just because you are managing a lot of people are depending on you, right? They're depending on you, us as a team, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of weight that comes with that too.
there is. And if you guys saw our Slack channels, if you knew our internal communication, we are always striving to be better. And it's always something. We always find something. And it usually comes from the two perfectionists. I'm not saying names or pointing or looking. But
Lisa, what are they talking about?
I have no idea.
No
I have
idea.
no idea.
everyone's right. And I'm going to go back to what, if they cut it up, it doesn't matter. But what Lindsay was saying about pressure and becoming a diamond. We all have our own personal experiences in life and things that we take on. And we also take on all of that emotion and all of those things that happen to each one of our clients on top of it, which gives us more experience, which gives us the opportunity to see things that one person in their life won't see. But since we do it over, 40, 50 families and growing, that we get all of those experiences and emotions on us as well. And I think that's something that I know a lot of planners don't talk about. Internally we do, but putting all of that weight on our shoulders, and that's how we feel about it, right? Like, yes, you're a client, and we have multiple clients, but every one of our clients, we put the weight of all of that financial wealth and all of that things on our shoulders, and it really sometimes can be overwhelming. It's heavy daily, on the weekends, even when you're with your family. Like, it's always there and present. But that's what we want to do. That's our servant heart of being. We want to take that off of you, because if we can take it off of you, you don't have that. You can go live. We want to take that burden on, and Some days it's super emotional
It's hard.
because we know we have to make the right decision and take the emotion out of it. But we know on the flip side, once that decision's made and it's one of those emotional decisions for the client, we know it's best as a business decision, but it's going to be emotional. And we still have to address and help get through and navigate through the emotional side of money. And money is the root of all evils. It is the most emotional thing that causes divorce and murders and drugs and like name it. It's derived around money. I mean, look at the war we're in right now. We're not in, but the war the world is in right now. Most wars are about some type of financial gain or economic gain of some kind, and it'll never go away. And just like Ryan said, it's going to just change over time, and it'll never be perfect. And everyone needs to realize that it won't be. We're not perfect. You're not perfect. There'll never be a perfect thing, but we're just going to keep on moving forward. We move forward, we'll be all right.
I think the best thing that I heard in everybody's answer there was a ton of we's. Like, we do this as a team at Black Mammoth. Like, it's truly a team. So, for example, Lindsay, I'll utilize you in this situation. If I had a client that was recently divorced and wasn't sure how to navigate that situation, I can't relate to that right now. I'm young, first, been married for just under a year now. I'd probably bring Lindsay into that situation and say, how do I help them navigate this? Okay, again, I'm about to have a kid. I'm leaning on all three of you guys who have experience in that situation. What notes can I take? And it doesn't have to be monetarily. It can be day-to-day lives. But Lindsay and I had a great conversation just last week about, hey, here's some tips that I did. Here's some awesome, onesies. Here's different stuff. Like that's honestly, it's those things
You
that
gotta change a
me
diaper.
Yeah.
now and soon I'll be able to relate with those people. But as of a couple of years ago when I'm first getting started, it's hard to relate. It's hard to have stories on my own that I can say, yeah, I've been there. I've gone through that. So again, the we part, the team part for us is relying on each other and our own experiences to say, hey, I'm going to bring you in on this one because I feel like you can relate really, really well to this person.
Absolutely.
Right. I was going to say, I've been working with clients in the insurance or financial capacity now for about 8 or 9 years, right? And I can tell you just about every person that has ever been a client of mine in some way, shape, or form. If you said their name to me, I could probably tell you what was going on with them at the time that they were interacting with me, right? But the weird thing about it, and I don't think clients conceptually understand this, is when you tell me your numbers, I forget them 5 minutes after you tell me. That's why we take copious notes because it's more about the interaction as people, as humans, getting through life, helping you get through all the things than it is about the numbers on paper, because the numbers are always going to change. And I think that's just something that I want to put out there because I get asked that a lot. Like, oh, I don't know if I want to share my numbers or something like that, or, or they'll out in public, I'll see somebody and they'll say, oh, I'm just here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I
got nothing.
I forgot your numbers 5 minutes after I wrote them down. I promise.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. Like the numbers, they're not irrelevant, but they're not relevant at the same time. And you're right. 5 minutes after, when we have clients email and be like, how are we doing? Or what's this? Or what's that? And I'm like, Ryan, I don't know. Someone look this up. I have no clue. Because we don't remember the day-to-day stuff like that. But I'll remember, what they're going through right now with either a parent dying or something. Like, I'll always remember that stuff. And as a team, that's important. I think it's important for every individual listening to is the numbers aren't that important. They're not. They're there. They're
just numbers. They don't change. They're factual.
No. I mean, the relationships are what you're going to remember.
Correct.
Forever.
Age ain't nothing but a number, right? I mean, it's just a number. We can deal with that. It's the other things that are much harder to address.
It's the emotion and it's the feeling that they're going to be judged, I think, is what they're most concerned about with those numbers. Is I'm concerned that, I tell you one thing, I tell you my salary, and you're just going to say, oh, shoot, I can't help you. I can't do anything for you. And maybe this goes back to that resident situation is hey, they're not making the $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. They can't do this exact amount a
But
month.
so aren't most people.
Exactly. Like, they're not doing that, so we can't help them. And I think that's something that you talked about, is those are the perfect people, because they are just ready to have a plan and have somebody in their corner. Sometimes it's just having somebody in your corner that you can trust and rely on, and not worry about, they're going to look at my numbers and say, oh, shoot, I don't know what I can do for this person. No, we can be there. You can do something for everybody.
Well, and something that we do very differently than other planning firms is we're going to help you actually like generate ideas about how to get creative with things.
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest reasons for making the change, is that I have clients that have unique situations, and I need to be able to help them come up with unique plans for those.
And be able to use our pool of people, whether it's our investor pool or client pool or whatever, and help everyone help each other as well, and use resources that a lot of others don't recognize or utilize, right? Whether that's going into a rental together, or someone needs funds for their business. Like there's so much that we can do within our pool to help each other, even more so. And I know past firms that I've been with that was never the case. It's literally just like, this is your path. This is what you're doing. Not internally, we have all these connections. Why don't we use them? Why don't we circulate that money? And that's a concept we'll get to another day, but circulating money, right? Making sure the money stays within your circle of people. You do that, then it doesn't go elsewhere. And everyone just keeps getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, because income's coming in and it's never leaving. And that's really what you want to do within, whether it's a firm or your family or whatever. It's all about supporting local. Well, your local can just be people around the world, but in your sphere of connections, and that sphere of connections, is led by us. And I think that's a huge piece for even one going individually or whatever, is create that circle of whoever them are and just keep working with each other, and you're all going to keep building together.
The preceding program was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities, or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors, including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only, and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.